I'm Tate Schwartz.
I'm Effie Davis. Hi, I'm Emme Davis.
I just felt like since I was starting it, I had to say, hi, I'm Tate Schwartz.
Right.
You know?
Welcome to the Yearbook podcast.
I'm actually Emme Davis.
That's a lie.
Oh.
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about coverage.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Use some hot tips to make your coverage better, people.
Yep. I think we have 5 tips. If we don't, we have more, and that's cool. If we don't, we have less, and that's also cool. We have tips.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Our first tip is doing the math. So what you want to do is you want to take the number of people in your school multiplied by the number of times you're covering them. Our production company recommends 3 times. So we multiply by 2 because they're guaranteed a school photo, and school photos are in the yearbook. So we only have to cover them twice. But if your advisor, your production company wants you to cover them more, then just multiply by that number. And then divide that by the number of content pages. And content pages are just pages that aren't school photos or the table of contents, and even that could have coverage if you tried hard enough.
The next tip is to make your coverage meaningful, and that is a very vague thing that's really easy to say. But what we mean by that is making sure that your yearbook coverage is better suited for a yearbook than, say, a newspaper. Because that's a trap you can fall in a lot of times, is covering something as if you were covering it in a newspaper, where the different mediums, they require different questions and different styles. A brief overview is that a newspaper's job is to cover an event, whereas a yearbook job is to cover the person. And so an example of that is a classic what's in your bag mod. And if you ask somebody, like a sports person, what's in your bag, oftentimes they're just going to say their most useful item, which could be just like my water bottle, my tennis racket, my towel. And if this was a newspaper, that would be cool because it would reflect what people have in their bag. It's a statistic. It's what is happening. But because this is yearbook, we don't want the same basic answer over and over again. We want
don't care
something.
what's in your bag.
Yeah.
We do not care.
Unless
we care
they're
about you as a person, not your backpack.
Unless their water bottle is bedazzled or their tennis racket is bedazzled.
Yeah, or it
their
has like a
towel is
sentimental
bedazzled.
story.
Yeah, unless it's something like that, we don't care what the most useful thing is in your bag, which is probably what they respond with. So, because this is a yearbook, maybe phrasing the question as, what's the most unique thing that's in your bag? That's going to give you a much more personal response and something that's going to be better to reflect on in 30 years than just what's in your bag and keeping it vague. So, to summarize, a strategy that you should use when writing your questions or coming up with content ideas is try to make things as unique as possible. And so even try testing your questions with each other, something you should probably be doing anyways, but seeing if you can get a variety of answers just by wording the question with using the word unique can help you a lot.
Our next tip is to make sure that the answers will change throughout time. You want to ask yourself that question when you're interviewing someone or when you send out a writer to go interview someone. You want to make sure that when people look back at your yearbook, that they can see 2 things. They can see their younger self and they can remember what they went through. Because it's easy to look back at pictures and be like, oh yeah, that was me however many years ago. But you don't remember what you were doing, what you were feeling, how you were as a person in that time. The best way to do it is by covering things that could easily change in the future. Things like, what do you want to be when you grow up? When I was younger, I would have told you I wanted to be a princess. That is not true anymore. I do not want to be a princess when I grow up.
She wants to be queen.
That is also not true.
Dictator.
No comment. The next question that is similar or along those lines is, what is your New Year's resolution? All of those sorts of questions, things like that, say something about a person at a specific moment in time. And when you read that back in 20, 30, 50 years, you're going to have a different perspective. These are things that can change at the drop of a hat very quickly, and sometimes they don't change at all. And that's okay too, because it shows who you are as a person and it shows your personal growth.
Another thing you can do to make your content a little more personal and meaningful is to make your questions a little bit more broad. One example of this is that every 2 years is going to be an election spread if you live in the US. And those spreads are always super good for coverage because it's meaningful, it reflects like the values and views of people, it talks about current events at the time with the issues they're on. The election spread is always just gold for Yearbook. But one thing that you can do that is kind of a mistake, or kind of a trap to fall into, is to ask a bunch of people the same question, which makes you get the same results. Because let's say, for example, in the past election, 2022, it was the election right after Roe v. Wade got poofed into the thinness of airness. That is not the correct term, but we're going
of airness.
Yep. After Roe v. Wade got Clarence Thomas. Is that a better one?
Just to say it got poofed into thin air.
It got poofed into thin air.
Anyways,
abortion was a big hot topic of the 2022 election. So when we did coverage of it, we had an abortion mod. But after the mod was created and I looked it back, I realized that everybody who said, yes, abortion should be protected, all their answers read the same. And everybody who said, no, it shouldn't be, all their answers read the same. And it kind of makes those people, well, not maybe it does, but it kind of makes, as the reader, makes it feel like just a crowd of people instead of the individuals that have their own ideas, which is something that I kind of want to avoid. So one thing that I should have done when directing the direction of that mod is instead of just grouping all the issues together, instead just asking people, hey, so the election coming up, what's an issue that's on your minds that people are going to be voting on? This way, they're going to be sure to talk about what they're most passionate about, but also their choice of what to answer with is part of the thing that makes it meaningful. Instead of focusing what they're talking about in one direction, their choice of, oh yeah, that, speaks a little bit about them and makes it so when they look back at it, they can say, yeah, that was what I was concerned about the most.
Our next tip is to ask if your answers will speak for a group. So sometimes when you're making a spread, a dominant mod can feel kind of weird because it gives students an unequal amount of photo space. If you have like one main person as your dominant photo, it's going to feel really, really unequal to all of those other people on that spread. So something that you can do to make it feel a little bit more evened out, a little bit more equal, is to make your stories speak for a large group of people, even if only a few people are quoted or in photos. So for example, you could do a story about an important football game, an important tennis match, things like that. Stories about change at school. I know for us, we used to have our study hall period 3 times a week, and this year we went down to 2 times a week. That was a huge thing.
Yeah, there were revolts in the streets, there were cars tipped over, it was just wild.
Angry mobs.
Yeah.
It was just a lot.
Broke out the school guillotine.
And another example is stories about a class. So if your psychology class is doing a brain dissection, that's a lot of people who are doing that. Not just, oh, Cindy Lou is doing her little brain dissection. Nobody else is going to relate to that. You're not Cindy Lou.
What?
Like...
Cindy.
But if your whole psychology class is doing it, you're going to have a lot of people to ask for quotes. You're going to have a lot of different perspectives on it. Well, and a lot more people can relate to it.
When Cindy Lou says, oh, yeah, it was kind of weird. I was kind of scared to poke the brain for the first time. Because there were so many people in that class, those people will feel, yeah, I felt exactly like Cindy Lou did. So Cindy Lou was kind of the spokesperson for the entire class, which makes the coverage feel a bit more spread out.
Exactly. This is where you're going to do your more event-based coverage. Focusing on your quotes and how people felt is what is going to make this work. Don't make your dominance based on the actions of like one person. So if Cindy Lou is the only one dissecting a brain, you're not going to want that as your dominant. You're going to want that as a personal profile somewhere else on the spread. So, yeah, I think that's all for this tip. And I think that's all for this episode. So make sure to follow us on YouTube at Yearbook Pod. Make sure to click that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and smash that like button.
I think the most entertaining thing is that you've given a different handle for the account every single time
Really?
you've done an outro. It's been the Yearbook Podcast, it's been Yearbook Pod, it's been Yearbook Podcast. They're already listening to it, they're already here.
Just subscribe, please.
Not even. After this ends, I'm just going to let the account go defunct, and it's just going to be like a relic that we'll look back in 10 years and be like, yeah, actually I have a YouTube channel, so like, look at this.
My quote on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's all. Bye.